Hello and welcome everybody to our Road Mapping and Planning for the Enterprise webinar. For those of you who don't know who my name is Maria Marquis, and here at Coda, I focus on education and empowerment. I love spending time with our Coda makers. I love learning about all of you, where you're coming from, what you're trying to build, and just demystifying this thing called Coda, breaking it down into something we can all use to solve those business and those life problems. So, before we dive into today's topic, which is all about road mapping and planning for utilization and things like that, I just want to make sure everybody knows how it's going to work so you can get what you need from today's session. There are two ways to get in touch with me as we move throughout our session. Over there on the right side of your screen is the chat field. A lot of you have already found that, which is great. That is a direct line of communication to me at any time during our session today. Feel free, post anything that's on your mind. That's open and available. And just to make sure that all of you have found it, let me know, where are you dialing in from today? Go ahead, post to that chat field over on the right side of your screen. Where are you dialing in from today? Make sure I got all of that. It's also fun to know where everybody is. So, where are you dialing in from? Geneva. Fantastic. Love it, Karen. So good to see you. Always. Yeah. Anybody else want to share? It's okay. You can also make it up. That's fine as well. Gainesville, Florida. Fabulous, Robin. Lovely. I've got family in Clearwater. Nice. Great. So that is your, again, direct line of communication to me. Feel free, use that at any point in time. If you have a question, though, please do post to the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen. That way, I can very easily track it. I don't make sure I don't lose anything in chat. And you can actually come back and visit the replay and play back the answers to those questions. So that is a direct place as well. So while we're starting to talk about this topic, Los Gatos, hey, wonderful neighbors. Good to see you. High five. So as we're starting to think about this topic, road mapping, what we're talking about here is resources, utilization, and really what is the path of moving from task to task to task so we can think about that longer term vision. So I'd love to know, if you are road mapping today, go ahead, post a chat for me. How are you currently doing it? What tools are you using? What does that look like for you? So again, go ahead, post a chat. How are you currently road mapping today? Just so I can understand your context, where you're coming from, and be able to make some recommendations. How are you currently road mapping today, if at all? Is it post-it notes? Is it a piece of software? Is it a spreadsheet that you're highlighting cells inside of? How are you currently doing it? Anything? Okay. Got it? Again, don't have to let me know unless you want to. Oh, got it. Great, Danny. So testing out all the apps. So playing with Notion, ClickUp, Coda, manually on a whiteboard. Totally, Robin. Olivia's using Coda. Fantastic. Excellent. Yeah, this is sort of there. When we think about road mapping, we need to think about style, right? Our communication style, our approach. Are we tactile? Are we visual? And then also, how do we think about connecting this to the other people inside of the system, right? A roadmap is only as good as the folks who are going along with it. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you a couple different examples, kind of a small, a medium, and a large, and then we'll do a deep dive into the medium so you can start to think about the components you'll want to add to your own road mapping. And also remember that it is a wide open conversation. Let me know what questions you have. There is no such thing as an interruption. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You should see it in just a moment. When you do, if you could just let me know by posting a yes, I can see it, looks good, some kind of signal inside of that chat so I know that we have everything we need here to get started. Fantastic, lovely, wonderful. All right, so when we think about a roadmap, so often I find that it's the Gantt really becomes a big part of it. Now, at its most basic level, and this is the most simple way to get started, and I'll actually pop the link to this quick start right over there into chat. The most basic level of our road mapping is this idea of a start and an end date, and then visualizing it in a Gantt chart. So this is the most simple way that you could do it in Coda. You'll have one table that's got the features you're driving for, the start date, the launch date, and if you want to include a duration, and sometimes the effort is really valuable, and then creating a Gantt view of that table that allows you to see all of that in the same situation. So for example, if I were to change this redesign to start at a different time, it would actually change it down here as well. And same thing if I change something over here on the table, maybe this actually is starting on September 24th, it's going to change it up at the top. So this is the most basic level, having a base table and then visualizing it as a Gantt chart. Very, very straightforward, very simple. Now, then we can take it to the large. We can take this really, really far. And I actually want to share a template from one of our fabulous makers, Gannon Hall. I'm going to go ahead, copy paste that over there into chat as well for you. Perfect. And Gannon built an entire product officer's toolkit that incorporates planning, OKRs, as well as road mapping. So you'll notice over here along the left side of the screen, there's a lot going on here. Gannon's written up a whole intro page here, sort of sharing his perspectives and how he likes to think about planning work. Also, an opportunity to set up this toolkit with all of the information that you need from planning teams and everything else. And what he did is he actually combined his team's planning process with the feature request process, with OKRs, with a roadmap. So he's got an area where planning happens. So the teams decide when they're going to meet and what they're going to do. We also have inside of the playbook some areas where he's sort of tracked his approach and his mind and how he thinks about OKRs and planning. So kind of taking his perspectives and documenting them. Then there's a whole area over here that's the planning team schedule, the teams, the idea crowdsourcing, and then building into actual OKRs here. So that's the first part. Not a stupid question at all. What is an OKR? Great question. It stands for objectives and key results. So this is a goal planning methodology that was done first at Intel back in the 90s, and it's become ubiquitous in the world of tech in particular. But you can think about it as a goal and a milestone, or objectives and then key results. Yeah, great question. Thanks for keeping me honest on that. The next thing that Gannon include is a whole area where you can be triaging feature requests, where people can be posting what the feature requests that are coming through and be able to evaluate it. And then he also has a whole section that is the roadmap. Now, this is something that Gannon built for his team. But notice he's really taking it to that full extension of it. He also includes an area on managing releases once they go out, as well as some team aspects. So this is really like the large version of the roadmap. What I'm going to share with you today is the medium version, kind of where I think everyone can start, that allows you to have a little bit more detail than what we see in our simple roadmap, but also give you the opportunity to decide what you might want to customize based on your own team's approaches. Because if we think about Gannon's toolkit, it's very much customized for his team, how they do work. And that's what's going to make any roadmap successful, is it needs to be designed for how you do work. Also, just a reminder here today, if you have any questions or ideas, you don't have to wait for me to stop talking. At any point in time, post it either to chat or to the ask a question option, and I am keeping a very close eye on both of those. So just let me know as we go through how I can be of service, because really it's about you and your questions today. So here we are in kind of, like I said, that medium version of a roadmap tracker, and it's got a couple different parts. So the first thing that any good Coda doc has is kind of the data side of the house. So having clear data that we start to then work with across the doc. Oh yes, I can definitely give you a link to this version as well. I just need to set up the publishing on it, and then I'll send that out to you, Karina. Yeah, let me just go ahead and do that right now. Just a moment. So this is what you can do with any of your Coda docs. You can always decide to have it be published out there. We're going to have it be play mode. All right. Doc settings. Anybody can copy it. Nice. All right. We'll apply it and we'll publish it. Let me just grab this link for you right here. And that should work out for you. Perfect. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start looking at this doc by looking at the base tables, because these tables power everything else inside of Coda. So for those of you who are new to Coda, a very core concept is having a table and then creating views of that table. And you can then make changes anywhere, and all of the changes update everywhere else. So this particular medium version has a couple different base tables. The first one is objectives, which we can again think about as goals. So here, what we have is we've got a table. Let's go ahead and just move that to the side. You'll notice we have a column that's the objective, and then this column that's the key results. In other words, how are we going to measure this objective? What are the steps to getting us there? And the nice thing about this table is it's actually a lookup column. So it looks up to another table using a formula. So here it's saying, hey, the key results, they need to match whatever the objective in this row is. And we're pulling it from another table, which we also have in this base area. So I'm going to go ahead, open that up on the side. We have another table here, key results. We could put this on the same page, but we can always decide to make changes there. This shows us all of the things that we're measuring. And then this particular roadmap, we also have this idea of epics. So epics, this comes from engineering. The idea that you have a larger story that you're trying to capture, that you're trying to move forward with, and then you have tasks associated with it. So you can kind of think about this as like the next level down. How are we going to actually achieve those key results? What are we going to do across that? So here we've got another table with, in this case, the epic name. We want to develop the email journey, which is part of driving this percentage and is part of this objective. So we've got a couple different layers here. Kind of what is our intention? What is our main goal? How are we measuring that goal? What are the steps along the way? And then what are going to be those features or those activities that move us forward? So by having these three tables, we can then use them across the board to build some connections, which we'll see in just a moment. The only other base table that we have here is this idea of status. So this is now a table that we can use to reference status anywhere else. We can make this become a drop-down menu, and it allows us to add some customization. Where I find this to be particularly valuable is defining the terms that your organization uses to think about phases. So it allows you to add a little more detail that you can then pull everywhere else. Excellent. Looks like we got a question here, which is, do you need to set up formulas to look up both directions, or do they know once you connect to connect the other way? Great question, Karina. Let's actually take a look at how these two tables work together. So the objectives table, like we saw here, we've got this particular formula that's saying, hey, go ahead and look at that key results table. Then show me only the key results where the objective is equal to whatever the objective is in this row. So in this case, it's just pulling the results that match this create a welcoming customer experience. So if we head to that key results area, we can now see how this is then pulled through. What we've got here is we've got a lookup column. That's just a plain old lookup column that looks up to that objective table. So here we say, hey, show me the objectives in that table, and that now becomes our drop-down menu, which I can then choose from any of those. So because we have this lookup column here, it lets us compare back to that core base table and then having that connection across the board. So that because that formula is looking, no matter what changes you make here, it's going to allow you to move things around. So if this is actually a key result for delight our customers, and I head back to the objectives table, notice here, delight our customers, we now have that key result here. So the formula is pulling it in here in a list, but we have that connection because of that lookup column. And we've actually done something really similar with the epics and the key results. So if we go to the epics table here, notice the key result, we're letting us know that it's part of that particular option, which means that in the key results table, we can actually see the epics over here, which is also being populated with that formula, which in this case is, hey, look at that epics table, show me the key result that's equal to this row. Yeah, great question. Oh, yes. So it is a drop down in the second table because you need to make that connection. So it's sort of thinking about what is the biggest unit? In this case, the biggest unit is the objective. So we can then pull that into our smaller units. And then we use formulas to kind of pull the rest of the details into that into that bigger table. So thinking about it as like almost like a hub and spokes. Yeah, great question, Karina. Excellent. You could also do, now that I'm thinking about it, talking out loud, you could do formula connections between them, but I find that this is actually a bit more elegant, a little bit more stable. It's my preferred way. Yeah, great question, Karina. All right, so these are those base tables that are all working together, and we then can now use them in different ways. So we can now see, instead of just, what are the key results that are addressing our objectives, what are the epics that are moving us forward, kind of a basic task management setup, now we can actually start to see them across different dimensions. So let's take a look at the status board, which is where we started up at the top. So we can hide our base tables. And one of the things that you can always do is you can just do this dot, dot, dot menu and choose hide. And that just removes it from over here on the left, allowing you to kind of keep all of the back end stuff out of the major areas where folks are working. So what we've done here is this OKR overview, again, our objectives overview. This is just a view of that base OKR table. We're just looking at it in slightly different ways. So you know that there's a link because it's got this little link icon. And if you click on that, it's going to show you over here in the doc map that this is a view of that main objective table where we started today. And we're just seeing it in a detail option. So the way that I made that change is I went to the options right up here and I chose detail view instead of table view. And this allows me to see it in kind of a flip book approach. So I can see that I've got each of my OKRs along the side. I can go ahead and I can click on them to be able to view it. And this is why that formula and that lookup approach that we saw before really matters, because it allows me to view that as a table. So I can see all of the key results here and all of the epics here in kind of a table view. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this little dot, 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 show you how I did that. I chose to edit the layout and I could now move everything around. And because of that formula, I could toggle off the ability to make it a table, which just shows me the lookups here. But by toggling onto table, it shows me all of the information about that in a table form. Because if we think about lookups, if I hover over it, it shows me all of the information about that particular piece of information. But by having it in the table, it allows me to see it kind of fully extended right off the bat. So a really helpful way of moving forward by just visualizing your formulas in some new ways. All right. Great question. So all the lookups show their entire table if you click through. Yes, Karina. So if you've got that lookup formula that we saw, if you go into the layout and edit it, you can toggle on the ability for a table and it'll show you all of the information there. Mhm. Yeah, Karen, I'm so glad that you love the doc map. I love it too. Anytime I'm trying to figure out how is this all put together? Oh man, where do these tables start? Where does it begin? Where does it end? It allows me to kind of diagnose what's going on, particularly for those docs that you build that start to get bigger, being able to understand how everything's put together. Yeah. So this is a great way for, let's say, a key stakeholder or an executive to be able to see all of this information about what's going on, and allowing you to have that more of a like a zoomed out view. And again, this is the same exact information. We're just seeing it slightly differently because we've changed the layout to be this display option. So that's the first part, the status board. Again, creating a summary view for someone who just wants the main information about it. Then what we did is we created this area that's all about this product roadmap. So this is where we are tying those objectives to actual features, right? So how are we actually moving forward on that? How are we planning product releases? So how we've got here, this is another view of those base tables. We're just seeing it slightly differently. So let's go ahead, just like we did before, and see how this is connected. So we've got our key results. Notice this is just a view of that epics table. And notice we've created a lot of different views of that, which means that if I'm working off of the stories or utilization, any changes I make there get pushed everywhere else and vice versa. So here, what we wanted to do is we wanted to see that epics table just in that Gantt view. So we can know how are these things cascading over time. And the way that we did that is just by clicking on options right up here at the top and choosing a Gantt chart right here. And that automatically takes all of that base table and puts it into this nice view here for us to take a look at. The other thing I'm going to highlight is that you can go ahead and expand and collapse any of these Gantt charts. So you can go ahead and see how all of those sub features are playing out. So here, this allows us to see where all of these things landing, working up the same information, just seeing it in a slightly different visualization. Now we could do the same thing then with the OKRs and the roadmap. So maybe we want to know how are all of these different objectives and key results falling. So we don't necessarily want to know about the features. We want to know how are all of these sort of larger level initiatives working through. So this is also just a view of that other table of all of the objectives, but we're just seeing it grouped a little bit differently. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how we did this. I'm going to click on this column up here at the top. I'm going to ungroup the column so we can see how this works. And I'm going to also ungroup this column over here, just so we can start from scratch. So here, this is just that objectives table, and we're pulling it in with all the key results and everything else. But I decided, I really want to see this in batches. And that's why I went and I clicked on all of these columns. I chose group, and I could group it along the left or along the top, creating kind of a pivot table type of approach. But this allows me to kind of see things in a bit more of an organized way by just deciding to, again, visualize it slightly differently using that grouping. You could do the same thing with your teams here. Maybe I want to group this along the top. We could go ahead and decide to do that just like so. You can change this up however you like. But the idea is, how can you visualize your information so that it makes the most sense to you in answering all of those questions? Yeah, grouping is one of my favorite things too, Karina. It just allows me to kind of make sense of information because maybe I still want it to be in a table. I don't want to switch to cards or Gantt, but I do want to see things kind of batched. And of course, you could always sort things, but doesn't always have to go that way. Very much a personal preference. So here again, this allows us to just see all of that same information just in a slightly different way because we have a different intention. Now, the next thing that we decided to do here is create some views that are based on these different epics. Because great, we've got these results that we're driving for, but maybe we want to go down that deeper level to understand, well, what are we doing on each of these sort of smaller scale? What does this look like for us? So I created a page for each of these. And what I did is I just made a couple different views. So here, this is the same thing of two different views, a Gantt view and then also a table view, but I'm just filtering it to only show the results for this epic of 40% of users come back. So here my filter is the key result is when I just check the box of whatever I'm looking for, and that allows me to just move forward very quickly with what I've got here. And then this is just a view of the same thing. It's got the exact same filter that we saw before. The key result is this 40% of users come back. And then I just went to the options, and instead of seeing that as a table, I was like, hey, show it to me as a Gantt chart. So this is the same pattern that we saw before with everything listed in the roadmap. But here we've just decided to filter our results to only show us this particular detail. Because now you could think about the team that's running this particular epic, doing this feature work. They could go ahead and be adding any information they want here, working on just their information, not having to see everything else, being able to focus their attention. And I did the same exact thing for this recommended score. It's just filtering by, in this case, if we go to that handy little filter right up here, filtering by recommendation score of 8, and just by checking that box. And at any time, you can always take a look at the formula of how this is put together behind the scenes as well. But I love to just work in this very simple checkbox format. Now, the other thing that I decided to do is take a look at one part of road mapping, which is great, we have an idea of what we want to accomplish, but how are we actually going to get there with the people that we have? So I created a page that's all about assigning work. So what I've done here is I've made, yes, another view. Let's go ahead and take a look at that little handy doc map by clicking that here. Another view of that epics table. In this case, I'm taking a look at the epics that need someone to be assigned to them. So we need to put some staff on it. So I've got here the owner, which is again pulling from that same one. And I have included a little column here that's a people column that allows me to assign work. So I could say, oh, great, I'm going to assign this to Ellie, for example. Now, one thing I did here to make it really clear to folks who are the owners of, hey, this needs to be assigned, is I have this showing up as just a yellow. So this is a bit of conditional formatting, a pattern that I really love to use over and over again. Whereas if something is blank and it shouldn't be, how can I give a little splash of color? So let's go over here to our options menu. And under conditional format, I've got some rules of formatting the name of the status. So it's showing purple and all of that good stuff. But here, if I take a look at the assigned to, this is, all right, if it is blank, and I just clicked on that right here, then make it yellow. But I could say, oh, make it red if I want it to be very stressful, or just sticking with that yellow is my personal favorite. But using this idea of blank or not blank is a really great way to add just a little bit of responsiveness to your designs. So the filter that I have here is if the assigned to is blank. So again, using that same logic we saw with conditional formatting, I want it to show up here so that these different owners can go ahead and assign work and we have it very clear who's doing what. The other thing that I did here, again, thinking about the owner and the assignee, is building up this little control up at the top. So this is a drop-down menu that allows me to look at this in a slightly different way. So I could say, all right, maybe I'm not interested in what Joe and John have that needs to be assigned. I'm only interested in things that I need to assign out work to. So I have this little control up here that allows me to filter this appropriately. And then I could say, all right, yeah, actually, I do want to see what John and Joe have done. So this is another really handy filter that you can use anytime. And the way that I did that is just by adding this control by just clicking a slash, and then you can take a look at select list. But we should spell it correctly. That's probably a good idea. Just like so, select list. We can go ahead and choose it down here. And then I made a little filter. So I just connected the table up here with that up at the top. So I say the owner matches the interactive filter of this select owner drop-down menu. So a way for us to have that nice built-in connection. Now, to help these people assign work appropriately, I wanted to give them an idea of how their different people are being utilized. So what I did is I made a handy little view again of that epics table. So this epics table is populating everything else that's at that task level. Oh yeah, Karina, good call out on making the idea of controls doing it from the column. So what you could do is you could build the control first and then add the filter, but you can also always decide to just go to the column itself, choose filter, interactive filter, and then create control, and it automatically makes that direct connection right away. So you can do it that way too. That's usually my preference as well. Good call out, Karina. So this utilizations table, again, is just a view of that same old epics table. Again, if we click on that little link here, notice it's showing us utilization. It's just a bar chart version instead. So inside of Coda, you've got a lot of charting options that you can do, and you get to them right over here under the options menu. We've already seen how you can add a Gantt chart, but in this case, I've chosen a chart, just regular. And then I can decide how I want this to be displayed. So if I click on this chart display, I decide, well, what kind of chart do I want it to be? Maybe I want it to be pie chart, line, bubble, word cloud is really fun, one of our newer chart options. But in this case, I wanted a bar chart so I could very easily see kind of who's outmaxed, who has space. It allows me to very quickly understand what's going on. I then made the access to be the assigned to, so who is doing the work, because I want to know how is that being distributed. And then for the values, I just chose the effort and then to sum it. So how much effort are we having people put in? But if you have another way that you measure this, you can go ahead and add that as well. And then I'm having it be segmented by the epic that they're working on, so by the task. Here I can see this Maria Marquis person has this really large task that she's working on, and whereas Glenn has a couple smaller tasks that he's working on. So it allows me to understand kind of what is available from a staffing perspective. Now, the other thing I did is I decided that I wanted this to be oriented horizontally. I just find this a little more readable, but I could make it vertical if I wanted to. And then I can also decide, do I want this to be stacked? In this case, I could say, oh, don't stack it. I want to just see things as separate bars, or maybe I want to see it normalized on a 100%. So kind of how are we people distributed across their work? But here I thought that no stacking, that regular stacking, not 100% stacking would be valuable because it lets me know, oh, Maria's got more, Al has less. I can assign to Al, he's got utilization. But again, this is all coming from that same table, right? So that anytime we make changes to adding epics or changing the effort, we also see it everywhere else that it's been placed. I know, right, Karen? Al does need to do more. I agree. So again, these are all allowing us to focus on whatever the task at hand is. In this case, this is just a place for those team owners to be able to do that divide and conquer of work. This particular page is just for folks who are working on this particular epic to update their progress so we can see when things are done or not done or pending. Now, we could also then create different personal views, which I think is always a good idea to think about when it comes to Coda docs. How can we allow for people to add their own flavor, to add their own approach? So, a couple different types of personal views that you can make are number one, creating pages for meeting notes. And you can do like an infinite scroll like this that we're seeing here, or you could add tables, or you could say for every meeting, we're going to add a sub page and do it that way. In general, I like to do this more infinite scroll here because I can always expand and contract. And then it allows me to be a little bit more responsible with how big my docs get. It allows me to just keep it a little more manageable. If you do decide to do this sort of infinite scroll, I love to always click the shish kebab menu and choose collapse the content. So it allows you to see how you're doing over time. And then another little pro tip, if you go to the options over here, you can always toggle on an outline. And then that allows you to see all of those different formatted options. You can click directly to them. So that's something I love to do for meeting notes. And this could be something that every team has their own area and just allows you to keep everything in one spot. The other thing you can do is you can then filter by different users. Maybe John wants to have an area where he can just go to see all the things that he is responsible for driving. So again, this is that same epics table, but in this case, we're filtering it to be where the owner is John. Another handy thing you can do is just filter by the current user, which means it's just going to show you only your things when you log in. But we've done that here by giving a space for John as well as Joe to create their own kind of custom views based on what they're working on and what's important to them. Another thing that can be really helpful when we think about product and roadmaps is an engineering view. So, being able to see all of the key results that require engineering's input. And you could even then decide to add a column here that pulls in information from GitHub or Jira for each of these actions, allowing the engineering team to really be able to work in a way that makes the most sense for them, pulling all that detail back. So, what we've done here is we've first decided what is the stuff that we're dealing with, our base tables. What is the biggest unit of measure? And how do those different pieces connect? Then, what we did is we decided, well, what do we need to do with that information? How do we need to visualize it? What do we need to see? So, in this case, we'd said, well, we need to know the status, or how are we doing? We need a summary view for our executive team. So, it's very easy for them to know what's going on. Then we decided we needed to know where are these features being launched. So we want that in a Gantt view. And then we decided we need to see everything organized by our objectives. So if we're thinking about how are we doing on this goal, we've got that good connection. And then we took to look at the tasks at hand. How can we view those tasks in ways that allow us to do our work well by either assigning it or focusing on driving them forward? So creating those separate views based on the tasks and the intentions, and then accounting for some personality here as well. So, this one in my mind is a really good starting place for someone who's trying to do a bit more of a robust aspect of road mapping. Being able to add your own information and your own details in here, but then always knowing that you can just start with something as simple as a basic table of what are we doing, when is it happening, and then visualizing it in a different way. Or taking it to its sort of full conclusion, like we see here with Gannon's doc, where he's built in all of the other processes when it comes to planning and goals in one spot. So that can be where you go in the future and be able to move forward. But nothing wrong with starting with just a simple, what is my stuff? Creating different visualizations to help you focus and moving from there. Excellent. Let's take a look at some questions coming through here. Great question. What if we want to limit someone's view? Make a copy to another doc, right? Great question, Karina. So if we have a certain amount of security that we need to account for, there's certain parts of our roadmap that you can't see. What we'd want to do is we'd want to be able to create a separate doc that's more for like everybody to look at, that we're then powering with the information from this core private doc. So the way that we would do that is by using something called crossdoc. We're actually going to be doing a whole formula fitness on crossdoc in 2 weeks, so definitely come there. But what I would want to do, let's go over here, is let's go ahead and just create a new Coda doc. So coda.io, actually we can do coda.new. And what I could do is create this area that's like just for the one Epics team. So we could say this is the 40% Epics team. And then over here, just search for crossdoc. That'll pull it up for us to be able to work with. There it is. This explore panel is a great place to go if you're just getting started with Coda to like figure out what's going on. And then I could choose the road mapping for the enterprise. And then here I could say I just want to pull in this table. So it'll pull in just those results, just that information. Looks like it's taking its time here for me today. And now I could share this doc with that team. So it's going to sync from that core big doc, but it's only showing their information. So they don't get access to everything else. So that would be the recommendation there. Mhm. Yeah, great question. All right, everybody. That concludes the first part of what I wanted to share with you when it comes to kind of different approaches for road mapping. But please let me know what questions you have. Are you trying to figure out how to make something happen? Are you curious? I'm here to answer any and all questions that might be on your mind. So please let me know what I can support you with, and I'll be more than happy to provide some recommendations or next steps. So, Karina, what you can see here is that we're pulling in that particular row. It's got the details about it, and it's pulling in that full table. And now I can be working on this table, annotating it here, getting information from that core master area, and then being able to have that process. Yeah, yeah, perfect. Mhm. Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, let me know what questions you have. I'll be hanging out here for another 20 minutes or so. So anything Coda related is fair game. Otherwise, I wish you all the best moving forward. I'll just grab these templates again so that everybody can work with that as they see fit. So I'll pop those back into chat for you. All right. You can make your own copies and edit and customize at will. That'll be there for you. Great. Also, just as a note, you can always head to coda.io/gallery. And if you're ever curious about, I wonder if there's a template or a starting place, this is a great place to go to be able to search for things. So you could say, all right, I'm really interested in product design and development and just want to see what's out there. You could go ahead and click on that. You could also just search for exactly what you're looking for. Like maybe I'm looking for a Dungeons and Dragons template. I could go ahead and I know that Maria has one out here for me and allowing me to have that connection. So anything you're interested in, this is a great place to go ahead and search. And you can also publish your own docs right here as well. Yeah, of course. Have a lovely rest of your day, Robin. Any other questions I can help with today? Again, anything Coda related, fair game. Ah, thank you, Karina. I did not see your question. These are our webinars sort of vary at different times. In general, we do 10 a.m. Pacific because that allows us to get our early morning and our late. It allows us to kind of be right in the middle. This one, we just did it a little bit of a later time today just for scheduling purposes and things like that. Yeah, but you can always rewatch them and replay them on our Crowdcast channel and be able to get that right there. But yeah, in general, we shoot for about 10 a.m. Pacific. Mhm. Yeah, not a problem. My apologies for the confusion on that, Karina. Of course, Ankita. Good to have you with us today. All right. Well, it looks like questions have come to an end. We can go ahead and close out for today. Best of luck road mapping. Have some fun and keep us posted with how you build yours. We're here to support you. We're here to give that recommendation however we can assist. Mhm. All right, great, everybody. Have a lovely rest of your day. See you later.